Thank you very much for having me. It is really important to understand the root causes of this crisis in Eastern DRC. Rwanda was a German colony, and in 1910, 1911, there was a meeting in Brussels between Belgium, which was the colonial power for Congo, Germany, colonial power for Rwanda, and the United Kingdom, the colonial power for Uganda. They decided to draw the borders between the three countries artificially, actually. And then we had part of the Kingdom of Rwanda, which was given to Congo with the people, and then the other part was given to Uganda. Then we have people of Rwandan culture and Rwandan heritage in those two countries, in DRC, which was Congo at that time, and Uganda. But those in Uganda never had any problem. They were integrated in society, considered as Ugandans. But those in Congo, those who left in Congo since 1910, were never considered as Congolese. They were always suspected to be Rwandan. And then this went on and on until the independence of Congo, and this marginalization and suspicion continued. In 1970s, the then president of Zaire, which was the name of the country, President Mobutu, decided to give them citizenship. But 10 years later, in the 80s, he came back. He stripped that citizenship from them. So their situation was always difficult. And then the situation was aggravated in 1994, after the genocide against the Tutsi here in Rwanda. The army and the militia who committed the genocide fled to Zaire, in eastern Zaire. So they had committed genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Then they found Tutsi in eastern Zaire. They started persecuting them because they were never disarmed. President Mobutu never disarmed those militias. So those members of the former army and the militia, the Interahamwe militia, they continued until they created the group called FDLR. And because that community was persecuted, that community of Congolese, Rwandophone, Kinyarwanda speaking Rwandophone, mostly the Congolese Tutsi. They lived there, but with this permanent suspicion of not being Congolese. There was even a famous note of the U.S. mission, U.S. consulate in eastern Zaire of October 1965 that says that the government of North Kivu has decided those people are not Congolese, that they are foreigners, that they are immigrants. The Congolese speaking
immigrants from where?
Immigrants from Rwanda. For them, they were immigrants, but yet they were born on those territories, which was divided by the colonial powers. They were born there. It's their land. Even if you see the name of the cities, of the rivers, of the hills, they are all in our language. People in Kinshasa can't even pronounce them because they are in our language. So then that community started after 94 to form different armed groups to protect them. The M23 that exists today must be like the fourth armed group that they have created. And now we have the first crisis of the M23 was in 2012, 2013, for the same reasons, meaning marginalization, persecution, and hate speech against their community. So in 2013, there was that force, MONUSCO, UN force, which was reinforced by what they called Force Intervention Brigade, FIB. that was deployed in 2013 to take on all armed groups. I remember that because Rwanda was a non-permanent member of the Security Council, and I was deputy permanent representative in New York at that time. We voted that resolution for the FIB because in our understanding, the FIB will also take on the FDLR. But didn't happen. They took on the M23. M23 accepted to withdraw Goma that they had already taken at that time. They were controlling Goma. Some elements of those M23 fled to Rwanda. They were disarmed. They were put far away from the border in eastern province of Rwanda, actually, as required by international law. We decided to give back the weapons to the Congolese government. And then in October 2019, there was a roadmap that was signed because Rwanda was acting as a mediator between those M23 elements and the government of Congo. So they signed a roadmap for their reintegration in the society. But unfortunately, the government of DRC didn't implement that at all. And then we had a second group which had fled to Uganda. For that, they didn't give up their weapons. They were still armed. They were also in contact with Kinshasa. At some point, they sent a delegation on the invitation of the government of Kinshasa to the capital of Congo, but they stayed 14 months in a hotel without seeing any official. Then they were fed up, then they came back to Uganda. Then in October 2021, the conflict resumed, but from that group in Uganda. But because the M23 and the Congolese Rwandophones are always associated to Rwanda, Rwanda was immediately accused. But then the conflict went on, and what has worried Rwanda beyond the accusations is that few months later, or even a few weeks later, the DRC government, which was actually collaborating with Rwanda to neutralize this FDLR under President Tshisekedi, decided to form an alliance to collaborate with this group of genocidaires, the FDLR. So they collaborated, they were even integrated in the army, and then beyond the FDLR, the government of President Tshisekedi decided to put in place a bigger coalition, military coalition. Beyond the FDLR, there were the local militias, especially Wazalendo, the Nyatura, the different Mai Mai, but also foreign forces, the Burundian forces, and also the mercenaries, European mercenaries that were deployed in contravention, actually in violation of UN Convention of 1989, which is against the use and recruitment of mercenaries. It is also against OAU, which is the predecessor of the AU, an OAU convention on 1977 on the same. So this bigger coalition, which was deployed in a context of increasing aggressive and bellicose statements by President Tshisekedi. In December 2022, he told young people in Kinshasa that he will support the Rwandan youth to get rid of what he called diabolical regime in Kigali. He said that publicly. It's still online. He continued in the campaign, electoral campaign. He said that if there is a single skirmish...
it's before the election, right?
That was, the first statement was before the election. Yeah. But this second statement was during the campaign. I think it was in December 2023 on the Top Congo. Yeah. He said that if there is a single skirmish of the M23, he will bomb Kigali without even setting boots on the ground. And then he continued with many insults. I cannot repeat all of them here. So there is these aggressive, bellicose statements, this military coalition, but at the same time, there were regional processes to try to find peace. There were two processes. The Nairobi process, which is an inter-Congolese dialogue between the government and different armed groups, because there are more than 200 or 250 armed groups in Eastern DRC. There are so many, because there's issues of lack of governance, of infrastructure, of administration. And then this Nairobi process had two tracks. There was a political track and a military track. For the political track, it was, of course, the dialogue. There were, I'd say, 2 rounds of negotiations with the armed groups, local Congolese armed groups, including the M23. But at some point, the President Tshisekedi decided unilaterally to expel the M23 from the talks, arguing that it's a terrorist organization. So he did it unilaterally. That was the political track. Then the military track. I recall that the Nairobi process is a process of the East African community under the mediation of the former president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. And then this military track was much more successful because from March to September 2023, there was a ceasefire during which the M23, which had a much smaller territory than today, had relinquished up to 80% of the territory it was holding, relinquished to the East African Regional Force, ECRAF, which was deployed by a decision of the East African community, heads of state. Then, but President Tshisekedi was not satisfied with the East African community regional force. He decided, once again, unilaterally, despite the fact that the decision was taken by a summit of head of state, so he decided to expel this force of the East African community. And then he called in a force of SADC, the Southern Africa Development Community, with a more offensive mandate. So we have this whole coalition of different foreign forces and different local groups with all an objective, because the President Tshisekedi had clearly stated his goals, his regime change in Rwanda. And we believe that this whole coalition with this regime change mandate is a threat to our security, not to mention that if it includes the FDLR, it also has this genocide ideology that the FDLR still has, which actually is reflected with increased hate speech and the persecution of the Congolese Tutsi. So that is the Nairobi process, which actually sabotaged by President Tshisekedi with his 2 decisions on the political track to unilaterally expel the M23 and on the military track to expel this EAC regional force. Then there was the Rwanda process. The Rwanda process is a bit different process because it's not an inter-Congolese process. It's a process between 2 states with a mediator, Rwanda and DRC. Because of this conflict, our relations were deteriorated. And then this process is an interstate process. So we had a number of meetings last year, starting March, 21st of March, until 14th.
December.
Until 14th of December, we had 7 ministerial meetings with a number of achievements. We have signed a ceasefire, which entered into force on 4th of August. There was this concept of operation on the harmonized plan to do 2 things, to neutralize this FDLR, which Congo accepted, and to lift our Rwanda's our defensive measures, Rwanda's defensive measures, because the problem we had is with these threat, we had to deploy those defensive measures. So we signed this concept of operation, CONOPS, on 25th of November. But there was, of course, after that CONOPS, there was a third issue to be addressed if we want a permanent resolution of the issue we have with the DRC, is the question of the M23. The M23 is a Congolese movement defending a Congolese community. But since it is always associated with Rwanda, if we are always accused of supporting them, even if you have an attack that does not come from the Rwandan territory. The M23, as I said, is a Congolese movement defending a Congolese community. But Rwanda has its own security concerns relating to this military coalition. This is why we have our defensive measures. Our defensive measures are to defend our territory. The M23 is even a movement that is becoming bigger, because now it's even AFC M23, Alliance Fleuve Congo, Alliance Fleuve Congo of Corneille Nangaa. So it's becoming a bigger movement which has grievances, political grievances that are growing. So for us, what we have is defensive measure to defend our territory and our people. And what you've seen in Rubavu is a demonstration of what could happen if we don't have those defensive measures. But we have always supported a political solution to the M23 question. We don't want anymore that in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, people come back to accuse Rwanda of this question. This is why we have always called on direct talks between the government of the DRC and the M23, and this is the only issue that we didn't agree on in that ministerial meeting of 14th December, which made the peace agreement that was prepared to be signed by heads of state of 15th December, that it couldn't take place. That summit couldn't take place because the only item on the agenda was no more. This is precisely the question or the issue we have with the international community, with some of the big Western powers, is to downplay this problem. And actually, it brings us back in history before 1994. There were also similar statements of downplaying what was being prepared, which led to the genocide against the Tutsi. So the FDLR, first of all, is a movement, one of the oldest movement that is in Eastern DRC, because it has been there for 30 years. This FDLR, you know that it's, of course, it's a genocidal movement which is sanctioned by the UN, but which was also designated as a terrorist organization in 2001 by the United States. But yet, the government of DRC is collaborating with them, and we really have a big issue with the group of experts. They are only expert by name, because they are really biased. They took a stand. They downplay the issue of the FDLR. They don't talk about the persecution of the Congolese Tutsi. In their report, you can read them. It's as if this doesn't exist. Do you know that there was, on 23rd of October 2023, there was a whole village called Nturo village in the Masisi territory. There were Congolese Tutsi who were living there. There were also few Congolese Hutu who were living there. So they came, militias, the Wazalendo, Nyatura, with the support of FARDC. They even asked those Congolese Hutu to denounce and leave the place because they wanted to attack the village. And those Congolese Hutu refused because they were in solidarity, they were in the same people, same village. 300 homes were burned down by those militias with the support of the Congolese army, and then there were the Burundian forces were even there, uphill, watching. 300 homes. And I've never seen any outcry of the international community, of the UN Security Council, and a group of experts. So there is a clear bias of the international community, which is really disappointing because it doesn't help in solving this situation. First of all, it's a bit strange for the government of Kinshasa to say that there is no threat against Rwanda, while the president of DRC says every other day that he wants to overthrow the government. It's public. And then second, when the president or the government of DRC collaborates with this movement, the FDLR, which has vowed to overthrow the government and to finish the job, what they say, the 1994 job that they didn't finish. And then when he put in place a whole coalition, military coalition, and when there has been shelling on several occasions in 2022 on our territory. So this statement is contradicted by the facts that there is no threat against our territory. And second, on minerals, that is a lazy narrative from some in the international community and the Congolese government. First of all, Rwanda is on the same rock as DRC. We have minerals, plenty of them. Who would believe that minerals will be in abundance in Congo and then arrived at a colonial border, mineral stops? That is not logical. So then we have minerals. But another thing is that this part of the eastern DRC, this North Kivu, South Kivu, this is where that community of Congolese Rwandophone live. They live there. The fact that there are minerals, it's another issue. It's their territory. But for example, there are plenty of minerals in Katanga. Why, if they say that Rwanda wants minerals, why don't we go to Katanga? But because it's the territory which happens to have minerals. And then there is also hypocrisy by the United Nations, especially MONUSCO. I heard, I think, in one of the meetings of the UN Security Council, a statement from Bintou Keita, who is the special representative of Secretary General, who said that now the M23 exploit the minerals. Yes, and this is unacceptable. But when the M23, which is a Congolese movement, took over Rubaya, it's even a Rwandan name, Rubaya. It's in the region of inhabited by those people. Who was holding Rubaya before? It was two foreign forces, two. One was the Burundian forces, and the second was FDLR, and exporting through Burundi. At no time did I hear Bintou Keita, MONUSCO, or the UN Security Council condemning that fact. So this really narrative of minerals as the root causes of this conflict is really a lazy and an unacceptable narrative. No, the M23 now controls Goma, as they controlled Sake a few days ago and control Minova. So now, as I heard yesterday, they are controlling the whole of Goma, and that we still have MONUSCO there, compounds and camp, they are still there. And Rwanda has been even facilitating to receive refugees, Congolese refugees, which were given humanitarian assistance. We have received the FRDC, the Congolese army, the FDLR, who were disarmed, but who were treated with the dignity in accordance with international law. And we also have received requests from those mercenaries I was talking about. There are mercenaries who fled to a MONUSCO compound, and then Rwanda said, we are
30 or 33, I think, Romanian.
Yes, I don't know the figure.
I was
Yes,
thinking
but today they will be evacuated through Rwanda, through Kigali, to the countries of origin. So we are playing a positive role to support those who need to be supported. But M23 now controls Goma. There is now a de facto ceasefire, and we believe now it's the time to engage into serious talks. I think 2 days ago, President Kagame was speaking with his South African counterpart, President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa. They agreed on the need for a ceasefire in the region and also for the political talks with all parties involved, including the M23.
And last night, there is a call with the foreign minister of United States, right?
Same.
Yeah.
Yes, Marco Rubio,
Yeah.
they agreed on a need to a ceasefire and for a political process. Yes, we have been having good relations with the United States, whatever the administration, Democrat or Republican. But it's true that recently we had difficulties with the approach by the Biden administration about this crisis because they were taking side very clearly with the Democratic Republic of Congo. They were downplaying all the security concerns by Rwanda. So we believe that with the Trump administration, we could now speak and talk and see how we can advance peace in Eastern DRC. This has started yesterday with the call between Secretary of State Marco Rubio and President Paul Kagame. And we hope that in the next days there will be a new approach at the White House and the State Department on how to promote peace in the region by working towards economic interests of the countries in the region, because we have always believed in economic dividend of peace. We know that with peace, economic cooperation and investment from all parties, all countries, including the United States, will be really well welcomed and well served with the peace in the region. So we need to address the security concerns of the countries in the region, and which will open the door for economic cooperation and investments from different countries, including the United States. MONUSCO in Eastern DRC has not been part of the solution. It has been part of the problem. You know that it was deployed almost 26 years ago, in 1999, under the name of MONUC. And one of the mandate given by the UN Security Council to MONUC and later MONUSCO was to neutralize the FDLR. At that time, I think in 1999 it was ex-FAR Interahamwe. It was the name at that time, but it became FDLR in 2002. Now we have 26 years of presence of that UN peacekeeping force. But when you compare the two periods, the situation is much worse. The armed groups have mushroomed under the watch of MONUSCO. And then we believe that there is a complete failure of that organization. I can even say that it's the biggest failure of UN peacekeeping missions after UNAMIR in Rwanda in 1994. But despite that issue of that failure, Rwanda is not hostile to MONUSCO. But we have concerns. I think we are three of them. First is that MONUSCO usually has a mandate of peacekeeping peacekeeping and protection of civilians. But now they have decided to be a belligerent, to support a national army, but worse, a national army which has a regime mandate, a regime change mandate against a neighboring state, Rwanda, which happens to be a UN member state. So a UN mission is helping a government to overthrow a government of another UN member state. It's a problem. That is the first. Second, they are supporting a coalition that includes the FDLR. FDLR is a genocidal force, but it's also a UN sanctioned group. How come a UN mission is supporting a coalition that includes a UN sanctioned group? Third, they are supporting a coalition that includes European mercenaries. European mercenaries were deployed in violation of a UN convention of 1989. So a UN mission is supporting mercenaries who were deployed against the UN convention. So everything is going wrong with MONUSCO, and I think the UN and the UN Security Council will have to seriously think about what went wrong with this group or with this mission. Yes, more or less, because I remember at one point, President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda had an interview about this question of the M23. He said that he wanted first to hear those young boys of M23 to understand their grievances. He met them, and then he even found that the grievances were not even big, and that it would be easy for the government of DRC to meet them and respond to those grievances. Because I remember under the Luanda process, the facilitator, Angola, invited a delegation of the M23 to Luanda from 29th August to 3rd September last year. Then they presented their grievances, and when you hear them, because we were given a report by the facilitator in the following meeting of ministers, their grievances are not about power sharing or positions in the army. It's about their communities, protection of their communities, the right to live in peace without being persecuted, without being discriminated, without facing hate speech every day, to live on their land. So this is a really common sense grievances, and we hope that given the new situation on the ground, now there will be more pressure or understanding by the government of Kinshasa that it's now the right time really to solve this issue once and for all. This is the issue, and actually we believe that President Tshisekedi and his government may be the only to benefit from this war, because we know that really when you see the opportunities that we have in the region of cooperation, of trade, there is no logical sense that President Tshisekedi will not accept to bring peace in the region. I was talking about the ceasefire that was signed on 31st of July, which came into force on 4th of August. And this ceasefire was holding, yes, relatively holding, but there were skirmishes, few skirmishes. But in October, they decided to increase militarization in Eastern DRC, to have more weapons, attack drones, to have more troops, including Burundian troops, and then they started attacking positions of the M23 heavily. So,
But
because...
but this make it longer. I mean, time is running.
Exactly. They are wasting time, wasting money, wasting chances, and wasting lives. So I think it is important to understand that we have seen now that military solution is not working. Goma fell together with other cities. Almost the whole of North Kivu now is in the hands of the M23. They have grievances that are not extraordinary, but yet President Tshisekedi decided to label the M23 as terrorists, to refuse any talk to solve this situation. We say this since day one. Since, I would say, end of 2021, we say that we need to have a political solution to this crisis. M23 had a really small piece of land in eastern DRC. Now the territory held by the M23 is becoming bigger. We are still saying the same thing. Now Goma is in the hand of the M23, but President Tshisekedi is still saying that he will never negotiate. So what does he want? This is what we all want. We want a ceasefire. There is, the conversation that has been going on over the past days between President Kagame and different leaders. They are talking and actually agreeing on ceasefire. Even recent meetings of the UN Security Council are talking about the need for ceasefire. We have this evening a summit of the East African Community, which was convened by President Samuel Ruto of EAC in his capacity as EAC chairperson. It's a virtual summit, and two heads of state, Rwanda and DRC, have accepted to participate because we are both members of the East African Community. So we hope that there will be a discussion on the way forward. For us, we are still committed to the Luanda process, but we have also we believe that we need to avoid maybe a personalization of the Luanda process and to consider it as an end in itself. For example, when you see the summit of 15th December that didn't take place, we have been hearing criticism by some of the international community that why didn't you attend? Why didn't President Kagame attend that summit? But yet there was nothing to sign. On 14th of December, the ministerial meeting failed to agree on the text to sign. This showed us that we need to, the international community wants to defend or protect the Luanda process for the sake of it, as if it is an end in itself. But for us, the Luanda process or any other process is just a tool to achieve a goal. The goal is to resolve the security concerns between Rwanda and DRC, to bring permanent peace in the region, and to open the door for economic cooperation between all countries of the region. That is unacceptable. It's unacceptable, and I raised it during the meeting of the AU, the ministerial meeting of the AU Peace and Security Council yesterday. That it's unacceptable to see those mobs, those thugs, going around Kinshasa, burning embassies, looting embassies, including African embassies, because not only Rwandan embassies, there are South African embassies, Kenya, Gabon, Congo-Brazza, also Western embassies, France, and others. So it's really unacceptable because most of the time, Congolese security forces were present without doing anything. So we raised it, but also yesterday during the meeting of the Security Council, many members also condemn these acts because they are in violation of the 1961 Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. It's not the first time that we have mobs of Congolese burning embassies, but also attacking diplomats. think sometime last year, it also happened when diplomats were attacked on the streets while we have security forces on the ground. But the problem we have in Eastern DRC, it's an endemic problem of governance, lack of administration, lack of infrastructure, lack of security, lack of command, where they're kind of organized chaos in the whole country. We are talking about the Eastern DRC, but look at other provinces which are not affected by the conflict. There is a problem of security. You should read reports of the UN Joint Mission for Human Rights. They are reporting cases of violence. Yeah, and sometimes they even do it in Europe. Yes, in Europe sometimes they attack, but they have tried to threaten our embassy in Paris. Actually, at some point they entered our embassy in Paris, and they even attacked Apple stores. Because they say, those are coming from minerals. So they are creating chaos in Kinshasa, but also in other countries.